As you know, there are 6 hours difference with here and Antigua and Barbuda, so it is 10 past 11 local time there. Hurricane Irma left the shores at 10 o'clock last night, and since the beginning of this morning, the reconnaissance operations have been ongoing to try to take a close look and take stock in a precise manner as to what exactly the impact of this natural catastrophe is, a catastrophe that is unprecedented. These reconnaissance missions have been ongoing since the beginning of the morning, and for the moment, the information I have is still partial. We need to take all of this information very carefully, and we must attempt to identify the most further-flung districts that have also been impacted before we can decide to send out all of the rescue and search missions to all of the island. The human toll for the moment is uncertain, as I said, because there are still rescue missions underway. However, I can point out that 4 people who have died have been recovered on the island of Saint Martin. There have been, for the moment, no deaths on the island of Saint Barts. The identification of the 4 deceased is ongoing as I speak. As for the wounded, there are some 50 wounded, 2 in a critical condition, and 1 extremely critical. 21 of the wounded have already been hospitalized, and there are many other minor wounded who are being taken to the emergency centers. Material damage is considerable. In Saint-Martin, according to the authorities, 95% of the infrastructure has been affected, and these are figures, of course, that will probably change as we get further information. The electricity is down, there is no drinkable water, fuel is unavailable. The roads are only partially usable, although the very first debris removal operations have begun. Electronic communications are exceedingly difficult because the networks have been hard hit. In Saint Martin, the harbour and the regional airport are, for the moment, usable and will be used in order to organize the emergency team's arrivals. An emergency plane was able to land at 11 o'clock this morning, which is good news. The operating theatres of the Saint Martin Hospital can now be used. They were extremely badly damaged by the hurricane, but they are now up and running. For Saint Barts, the hospital is running as per usual. In Saint-Martin, all of the fire brigade's buildings are functional. In Saint-Martin, the police headquarters has been destroyed, and in Saint-Barthélemy, it is the center for emergency services that has been destroyed, and the airport is also unusable. As from last weekend, as the forecasts began to become more precise, the government and the state services had begun to organize themselves to pre-position and to galvanize the necessary human and material wherewithals. Civil security and water reserves had already been sent to the islands. 80 firemen from Guadeloupe, Martinique and Guyane were already in position before the cyclone, before the hurricane. The Minister for Overseas Affairs arrived in the zone this morning. She will be coordinating and participating in the operations, organizing logistics from Guadeloupe for the most affected areas. As I speak, coming from Guadeloupe, there are 400 gendarmes and 400 military firemen from the civil security who are arriving. We have people from the Red Cross, some 20 medical service teams as well, who are on standby. From continental France, there is a brigade of firemen that is being organized, a squadron of mobile gendarmes, and also technicians, experts in the identifying of victims who will be sent very shortly. For material equipment that will be used or that has been ordered, they will be proportional to the disaster, the damages that we have seen. The Army has been called upon to take part in the operations. 2 frigates from the National Navy will be participating, 2 Falcons as well, an A340 that will be leaving continental France tonight, and 4 helicopters from the military defense. 7 civilian ships have been requisitioned, several planes as well from the customs services, and 2 heavy vehicles, heavy planes, will be transporting equipment as from Sunday. Our top priorities are the following. First of all, we have to finalize our reconnaissance so that we have as precise an idea as possible as to the size of this catastrophe so that we can decide what response we must give. Secondly, to give immediate help to the peoples, delivering as quickly as possible water and food. Several thousands of bottles of water are already on the spot. There is a barge with 100 cubic meters of water that is on its way, and from France, several thousands of bottles and survival rations that are destined for feeding the population are en route. The third priority is to organize the evacuation of the wounded, working with Guadeloupe and Martinique. Hospital beds have been prepared in the student hospital in Guadeloupe. Some of those who were already hospitalized in Guadeloupe have been transferred to Martinique so that those victims who need to be evacuated can be done so as best as possible in Guadeloupe. Fourth priority, to ensure security and public order. It will be up to the mobile gendarmerie that will be on the spot and that have already organized the keeping of law and order insofar as is possible. The procureur of Basse-Terre will be arriving very shortly, and his will be the task again, working with the gendarmerie to coordinate all of the necessary missions that will safeguard public order. The next priority, and this is a difficult one, will be to re-establish electricity that is necessary for all vital operations. From Guadeloupe, equipment is already on its way, and from France, some 40 heavy generators are being prepared, and they will be sent at the latest next Sunday. These priorities are being undertaken in extremely difficult conditions, all the more difficult because on Sunday afternoon, another hurricane called Hurricane José is forecast to arrive. It should not be as violent, but after the damage that can already be seen on the islands, Hurricane Jose will probably also cause more. The intensity of the hurricane, the widespread devastation that is unprecedented, have meant that this emergency response is one that will be long-lasting. The minute our reconnaissance is finished, we will, as from tomorrow, be declaring a natural catastrophe. That official declaration will be signed so that the compensation in the case of natural catastrophes can get underway in the insurance business. A first interministerial meeting will be held in Matignon tomorrow morning in order to organize not just the emergency actions to be taken, but what must be done on a longer-lasting basis. As soon as possible, and working with the municipalities of St. Martin and St. Bart's, we will send out adjusters who will, insurance adjusters who will be able to take a close look and properly survey and estimate the damage that has been done, so that once again we can help in the longer term to get these inhabitants, these victims of this natural catastrophe, back on their feet. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you in St. Martin's and St. Bart's, those of you in the surrounding islands, you have all lived through an unprecedented, violent moment. Many of these people are in shock. They have lost their loved ones, they have lost their worldly goods, and even more, sometimes are without news of their families. 90,000 telephone calls have been received already by the hotlines, the call centers that have been set up for that purpose. I can but say that you can be assured of our solidarity, and I would go on and say that apart from what I have just said, we will be doing all we can so that a concrete response can be given to this catastrophe. I would like to herald with great respect all of the professionals, the emergency teams who are working. They have come from Guadeloupe, Martinique, Guyana, or France. They are the epitome of national solidarity, and they are the pride of the nation. We are also working extremely closely with the Dutch authorities. In the meeting that I just held, there was the ambassador to the Netherlands present. This solidarity will be long-lasting. Our fellow citizens and St. Martin and St. Bart's can be assured of that, as can their elected officials. The quality of our action today is going to depend on the quality of the state's response. But it is not just the state's response that is important. What is important is solidarity. It is the commitment, the engagement undertaken by all of our fellow citizens. With the Interministerial Aid to Victims Committee, we hope to be able to center all of the donations and then send them to the right places in order to help victims. The modalities of how to contribute, how to donate, will be given later, but I can also tell you that the telephone number is 0800 500 100. In the face of such an unprecedented catastrophe for St. Martin and St. Bart's. It can but be the solidarity of all of the services of the state that can make a difference. And that is why we are here today at this rostrum. I would again like to congratulate the quality of the work that has been done by the Ministry of the Interior and all of the other competent authorities. It will be a long haul. There will be a lot of emotion. There will be considerable sadness. But I do not have a shadow of a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that France as a whole will stand side by side with our fellow citizens so that they can stand again and live in the pride and the happiness of living in Saint-Martin and Saint-Barthélemy. Thank you.
C'est le cas pour un très grand nombre de ces zones, mais pas encore pour toutes.
That is the case for a lot of these areas, but not for all.
Vous comprendrez évidemment qu'on ne peut pas faire de spéculation et qu'on ne peut pas se permettre d'imprécisions sur ce sujet. Nous avons la conviction, la certitude que 4 personnes décédées
for sure that there are 4 people who have died in Saint-Martin and who have been identified. For the others, we will give you the information as soon as we have it, as quickly as possible.
Le temps de faire les choses correctement dans des conditions qui sont extrêmement difficiles.
It will take the time
Je comprends parfaitement le questionnement, l'impatience,
identification under such difficult conditions. I can understand the anxiety, the fear, the impatience that the citizens are undergoing. But the forces of law and order and the emergency rescue services are identifying as we speak. They are working as we speak. It is very difficult because of the debris, because of the catastrophe. But as soon as we have any information, as I said, I will give you that information.
Ça correspond à une catastrophe d'une intensité jamais vue sur les deux territoires.
This is an unprecedented natural catastrophe on the territories that I have just mentioned. So our response will be proportionate to that unprecedented natural catastrophe. It will be a civilian response, it will be a military response, and it will not just be short-term, it will be long-term. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.